So Trump has insinuated that the Western world is being going to hell because they're letting migrants from the global South migrate to the Western-led order of the Western European continent. So he wants to spread hate baiting against xenophobia, against ethnic groups, whether we be from Latin America, South America, whether we be from Africa, whether we be from the Middle East, whether we be from Asia. He wants to spread xenophobia of his fascism throughout Western Europe, for they can demagogue migrants and inhabitants, indigenous from the global South. And then, to make it seem like he's not racist, towards the end of his speech, he said that every country on earth should close their borders and deport illegal migrants. In other words, condescending for migrants to fight and argue with each other based on ethnicities. If you listen to Trump, 15 years of his politics, when he talks about migrants, he's not talking to them in a kind way. He calls them varmints, he calls them infestations, calls them animals, he calls them shithole people from shithole places. He calls them people, they're sending us their worst, they're releasing them from mental wards, insane asylums, prisons. So now he's trying to spread bigotry throughout Western Europe, mainly Italy, Britain, maybe Germany, in the hopes that he can get and start a movement throughout Western Europe with white elitist supremacy. And then to make it seem like he's not a bigot, hypocritically, he's insinuating towards the end of his speech that every country should cordon off their borders, build walls, and deport illegal migrants. So if the world leaders were to take his advice, there will be mass riots, mass oppression of the media, mass divisiveness of ethnic groups fighting with each other. Just as long as he can feel like he's on top of the world, he says he's the most consequential leader in the world. He says he's better than Washington, better than Martin Luther King, better than Lincoln. He says his art of the deal is better than the Bible. While he tries to peddle oil like a Rockefeller con artist, Rockefeller's father was a con artist, a grift, with snake oil remedies, selling snake oil to unsavvy people, cutting and peddling remedies. And Rockefeller learned from his father how to be a killer, or how Trump says, a venomous snake, with snake oil remedies, thinking that he could tariff the world 100%, as long as he can crypto it through the treasury, through the world reserve currency of America's dollar, the petrodollar. He wants to keep the whole world drowning in gasoline, while his fumes are being emitted in the atmospheres with high pressures throughout the stratospheres until it reaches the ionospheres, and those ions heat it up again, like a combustion gas inside of an engine with a static charge, setting a thermal runaway effect within the cylinders. Compression throughout the stratospheres, these biogases, and then the ionospheres are what it sounds like, electrons, highly charged. The ionospheres. That's why things burn up when they come into this planet, like asteroids, comets. But these gases heat up there, and they can't escape. They stay warming up the planet internally, creating heat domes. But this guy, this snake oil con artist grift, he's always been in the pocket of Exxon, Chevron, Texaco, the big monopoly, Rockefeller. He brought it back again. He unified them, so they all headquartered in Texas. And now he put Bitcoin, stablecoin, and other crypto companies within the Treasury snipped the purse strings of Congress in order for him to control it as the chief and commander, while he ciphers off World Liberty Cryptos, his company of crypto coins. In 7 months, he made $7 billion, mainly throughout the Middle East. Not only making oil deals, but selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, selling planes to Qatar, selling computer chips to Dubai, and they all came out handsomely and paid him billions and billions personally to his company of cryptos. And he will pump and dump it like quid pro quos, payouts. And he's enriching himself by tariffing the world 100%. And if any nation has anything to say about decoupling from the petro-gasoline dollar of America's mighty, mighty dollar, he will tariff every nation on earth 100% into starvation. He doesn't recognize the Human Rights Organization because he wants to get rich off the Riviera Gaza Strip, with him and Jared controlling it like a Commonwealth Republic of the Trump Organization, where you can go on vacation with Trump hotels, Trump resorts, Trump casinos, Trump golf courses. Like he told Bibi in the White House, in the Oval Office, he said, yeah, but the Palestinians have to go. They got to flee to Egypt, to Jordan. We don't want them back. The Riviera should be somewhere where only rich and powerful people can come. So, he makes as an excuse of phantom hostages, for they can prolong the starvation, the bombardment of the remaining refugees in the Gaza Strip, in the hopes that they will flee and never come back. So Trump sees dollar signs everywhere he looks. He wants to take Canada, Greenland, in order to run gas and oil pipelines from America through a Canada territory, then through the Arctic territory that belongs to Canada and Greenland, and then reach Western Europe. For Western Europe also to be dependent on American oil, along with the whole world has to be enslaved by America's petrodollar, while he destroys the planet with runaway heat dome thermal reactions and the ionosphere of these fumes. So he's in the business of The Art of the Deal, which he says that book is better than the Bible. He says he's the most important man in world history when it comes to politics, the most consequential man in world history. He thinks that January 6th was better Martin Luther King, the day Martin Luther King gave a speech, the I Have a Dream speech. He thinks that his supporters ransacking the building, almost hanging his vice president, which he says at the time, he could see why his supporters wanted to hang him. And then in that same January 6th event, they almost blew up the vice president with 2 pipe bombs. They almost killed Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. He said that day was way better than Martin Luther King Day. That his speech was better and that he had greater crowds than him. Now, Trump, if you watched and studied his political career for 15 years, since he came down those golden escalators, as he say, from Trump Tower, if you study his rallies, in some rallies he says, oh, the lights are too bright, turn down the lights, inside these stadiums that he rents to hold these events, his rallies. He said, the lights are too strong, turn down the lights. Whoever's in charge of this event, I'm not going to pay for renting this stadium. Turn down the lights. Sometimes sometimes his microphone doesn't work. My microphone ain't working. Who's in charge of this microphone? You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get fired. and I'm not going to pay for this event. Sometimes his teleprompters don't work. So if you study his rallies since 2015, he complains about malfunctioning microphones, teleprompters, and spotlights while he's standing on stage grandstanding. And in those same stages, he looks at the media and says, these are the enemy of the people. As far as he's concerned, if they don't praise him with mirror, mirror on the wall syndrome, that's his enemy. Because he wants flattery of pure, omnipotent vanity on this planet. Now, Fox News is his mouthpiece. Fox News is his mouthpiece. Now, Murdoch outed Trump with an Epstein birthday card that Trump drew in honor of Epstein's birthday, where he says that he shares an enigma and a secret for the love of women with Epstein, and drew pubic hairs with his signature. Trump got mad at Murdoch media for telling the truth and tried to sue them for $10 billion with a B. But the courts threw it out because they know that the evidence was credible. So they didn't award Trump $10 billion. But I guess Murdoch had more dirt on Trump as far as Epstein, because somehow Trump awarded TikTok to Murdoch for Murdoch to run. So I don't know if Murdoch is blackmailing Trump. I don't know if they're enriching themselves by insider trading through Fox Business News with Lucknick in this Commonwealth Fund that surrounds themselves around cryptos. I don't know if they buying themselves into Intel as hostage mergers, becoming board members as pirating themselves on the corporate boards of these companies, and degenerate activism trying to take over the companies. They got 50% of American Steel. They got Intel. They want to keep on buying up American companies using Trump to talk the markets up and down, up and down. And then they do insider trading and take over these companies. They pirate the companies. All that through the Treasury, through Trump controlling the Treasury of America. And now he wants to dictate to the Federal Reserve. Just as long as Trump and his crony business partners, his oligarchs, can enrich themselves. And Murdoch is right there along with him, making a fortune for himself. Now, I don't know if they had a fallout because of the Epstein birthday card, and Trump tried to sue Murdoch for $10 billion, but then Murdoch turned it right around, and all of a sudden Trump doesn't talk no more about Murdoch, and even awarded him TikTok. Because Trump wants to control X, Elon's platform, X, formerly known as Twitter. Trump wants to control Facebook. He wants to control YouTube. And he wants to control TikTok in order to prop up his politicians, whether they be governors, mayors, running for re-elections or for public office, whether he wants to steal the midterms and use these platforms as propaganda bases for himself, to prop up and spread his fascism. But listen to what there's a show on Fox News called The Five. So it's a show that airs, I believe, in the afternoon around 5 p.m. They call it Fox 5, The Five. Listen to what they said about the escalators. Now keep in mind that throughout 2015, all the way up to the present day, basically almost 15 years of Trump in politics, at his rallies, he has malfunctioning teleprompters that don't work, microphones that don't work, lighting that is too bright for him. But listen to what Fox said about the United Nations. And keep in mind, Trump doesn't want to observe the Human Rights Organization. the World Health Organization, because they want to starve out the Palestinians and enrich themselves with resorts and a Commonwealth Republic under the Trump Organization. Him and Jared controlling all of the Gaza Strip to enrich themselves. Trump wants to tariff the whole world, extort Europe for tribute, annex Canada and Greenland, take Panama Canal, enrich himself by flattering himself with the oil-rich Arab nations throughout the Middle East to launder that money into his real estate. And he wants to all cipher it off through cryptos and then launder it into his real estate empires. He wants to peddle oil and make everybody enslaved to the mighty dollar, just as long as he can control the treasury of this asymmetrical world soul superpower economical order. But listen to what Fox said about Trump's malfunctioning escalators. Now keep in mind, escalators, when the sensors of an escalator feel like something is being caught in the treads, the steps, the treads of the escalator steps, when there's a sensor and it feels like something is being tripping it, it stops in order to save lives. I witnessed personally with my own eyes a little boy. He had shoestrings loose. I believe it was shoestrings that he had loose, and he got on the escalator. All of a sudden, he reaches the top of the escalator, and the shoestrings get stuck at the top of the escalator and starts pulling him in. And you see his mother trying to pull him out. But the escalator was going so fast, and they didn't have one of those sensors that turns off. The escalator didn't have a safe-proof sensor to save lives. So that kid, his leg started being pulled in, his feet, his toes, his leg. Before you know it, his whole body was shredded. Like you know when you put a paper in a shredder? That's how his body looked, like it was being taken under and shredded, to sucked in. It was so gross to see that vile destruction. So ever since then, they build escalators with sensors for that horror, that very, to see that, to witness that, will traumatize you for life. Not to mention the kid experiencing that pain when his life was taken away from him by an escalator that didn't have a safety mechanism, and the mother trying to save him, and she couldn't do nothing to pull him out. And the last thing she let go was of his hands, right before his hands disappeared under the escalator. So Trump was going up the escalator with a White House photographer, snapping pictures of Trump as him and Emalia was going up the escalator. The White House photographer was he was in the escalator himself too, reaching the top of the escalator. And the photographer must have set off the mechanism, the sensory mechanism. I don't know if he had equipment. I don't know what was going on, but the escalator stopped. The escalator stopped. Now Trump, all he can think about is his vanity. All he can think about is oh my God, they called me and Imaria looking sideways, and we looked at stupid, looking sideways. We looked at dumb. That's all they give a damn about. But they don't consider that censor probably saved that White House photographer. But listen to what Fox says. Fox News. The 5 at Fox News.
Saying UN staffers were joking about how they may turn off the escalators to mark Trump's arrival. You know, Jesse, you're the person I go to when I want to know what's behind the story, what's going on with the escalator. What do you think?
Yeah, they sabotaged him.
Yeah.
And they could have hurt the first lady.
Yeah.
Trump would have fallen and he would have gotten back up. But, you know,
they would have blamed it on his rhetoric.
And then they sabotaged the teleprompter.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an insurrection. And what we need to do is either leave the UN or we need to bomb it. It is in New York, though, right?
Yeah,
Could be some fallout there.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Maybe gas it?
No.
Let's not do
Don't
that.
gas it. Okay. But we need to destroy it. Maybe just, can we demolish the building?
We could turn it
Have
into-
everybody leave and then we'll demolish the building?
We could turn it into affordable housing.
Okay.
That's what you do, affordable housing.
No, I don't like that. I like nice sky rises, Dana, the expensive condominiums. You
trying to
see
win an
the
election
East
here.
River from there. No, this is
So you start to see that these are elitist Fox anchors that probably live in Billionaires Row in a high-rise condominium with salaries that Murdoch can afford. Now maybe Trump should get the Nobel Prize for gassing with chemical weapons the United Nations World Summit Assembly with all the sovereign leaders, heads of state, in the building. Maybe Fox News will say that he merits a Nobel Prize for that. Or maybe when he bombards the building with a U-2 stealth bomber, he can brag about total complete obliteration and that he should get a nomination for the Nobel Prize. But you see the conservative media outlet. And you know, you gotta understand, Murdoch and Trump are tied at the hips. They benefit each other. Even though they bicker and argue with each other and might blackmail each other every once in a while. But they still enrich themselves through Fox Business News, insider trading, Trump's with Lucknick and Murdoch. They talk the stocks up and down. Murdoch has the news anchors reporting about the stock market, what companies are doing good, what companies are doing bad. Trump's always having his Secretary Harold Lucknick of Commerce being interviewed on Fox News. So is it a business racketeering between these oligarchs? I don't know what Murdoch has on Trump, but they all wash each other's hands with quid pro quos. But maybe Murdoch has some more Epstein files to blackmail Trump. And so Trump, instead of winning $10 billion for his love letter birthday card of an enigma to Epstein, maybe Murdoch has more salacious documented files or videos. But for some reason, TikTok went to Murdoch right after Trump lost the $10 billion lawsuit. But you got to understand, these people, they may have a love and hate relationship, but they still wash each other's hands. Fox won't be nothing, Trump won't be nothing if it's not his platform through Fox. But this is the type of conservative value that Fox has. This is the type of conservative values. And you know, Trump told Pam Bundy, don't make it a priority investigating international money laundering and corporate fraud. Trump insisted when he nominated her that she doesn't prioritize those type of cases. In other words, like hinting to her, don't get into our business between Kash Patel making money off of Trump, destroying any incriminating evidence as he tries to raid all the FBI files. Trump did a lot of dirt in his first administration. And Kash Patel is just a fixer. And Kash Patel is in Trump's pocket. He gets paid millions of dollars for Truth Social, along with Devin Nunes. And so you start to see that these are all racketeers abusing that Oval Office to enrich themselves. But Trump takes the cake. And sometimes Rupert Murdoch does too. But it's all this perversion around Trump and his audited deals. So, a week ago, Trump was suing Rupert Murdoch for $10 billion. And all of a sudden, the courts decided that the evidence was credible, that the Epstein documents came from the Epstein files, so they dismissed as a frivolous case. But it must seem that Rupert Murdoch probably has more documents or videos, because all of a sudden, Trump awarded the merger of TikTok to Rupert Murdoch. So you got to understand, they might have disagreements, they might argue with each other, they might try to blackmail each other, but they definitely enrich each other as racketeers. Sometimes they just bicker with each other, but they both racketeering with themselves. So Trump in 2024, he depended on Elon. Elon owns a supercomputer company called Colossus. That's the names of his supercomputer, Colossus. So a year and a half before 2024 elections, Elon was flooding pro-Trump short videos through all the platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And that's how Trump won the popular vote in the swing states for the 2024 elections, with propaganda through the social media, through the bots on Elon supercomputers. Now, in 2024, as soon as Trump stepped into the Oval Office, he says, I want TikTok. He wanted TikTok as another propaganda base, a bullhorn for himself. So he was extorting China with tariffs in order to get the ownership of TikTok. So they signed a deal. He got the ownership of TikTok, and he awarded it to Rupert Murdoch. This week, he awarded it to Rupert Murdoch, and last week he was trying to sue Rupert Murdoch for $10 billion. But obviously, Rupert Murdoch has more Epstein files that Trump got scared and caved into Rupert Murdoch. And so they extort each other because Trump uses Rupert Murdoch's cable business news to do insider trading with Lucknick. They talk the markets up and down. And then Rupert Murdoch is inside trading with them. And Rupert Murdoch appoints his anchors, Maria Barbarossa and his other business Fox News anchors, to talk and speculate on the stocks that they're trying to merge, like Intel, American Steel, and become oligarchs and become robber barons by owning these private companies as government officials through a wealth fund, a crypto wealth fund. That when Trump steps down out of office, they will still have interest holdings in those cryptos, private companies, as oligarchs. So you can start to see that altogether they are all racketeering with each other. And like thieves, sometimes they blackmail each other. Sometimes they try to stab each other in the back, like Rupert and Trump has a love and hate relationships behind the scenes. But they all racketeer with each other. Now, in 2020 elections, when Trump wasn't able successfully to steal the elections and send it back to the swing states with fake delegates, when he seen that all the senators went to the floor to condemn him and condemn January 6th rioters, where they almost tried to hang Mike Pence, where they almost blew up Kamala Harris with 2 pipe bombs and almost killed Nancy Pelosi. When Trump seen that they condemned him, his own party inside the Senate, Trump got scared and ran to Mar-a-Lago with all the archives that incriminated him, all the archives that he needed to give his lawyers to try to find loopholes and argue through Judge Cannon, the Florida mayor, the Florida judge, Her name is Judge Cannon. So Trump, once he realized that the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, kissed his ring, he's seen another opportunity to get back into politics, but this time it's Trump 2.0. Because in that time, Trump was being indicted in New York for rape, for Eugene Carroll, for real estate fraud, insurance fraud, bank fraud, tax evasion, for his real estate deals. Trump has a corruption dating back since the 1980s with his lawyer, Roy Cohen. Trump used to play kickbacks to frat Tony Salerno and Carmine Galante and the other 5 families that controlled the unions, the construction unions, in order for them to cut corners, like hiring undocumented Polish workers, migrants, to rip out asbestos without no face masks, without no safety gears. Trump, through Roy Cohen, paid off the mob to have corrupted union officials let Trump cut corners while Trump was rebuilding and remodeling his buildings. So Trump has a long deal corrupted with organized crime. He even had an associate in Trump Towers that their associate father was connected to the Russian mob, the head of the Russian mob. They would launder money into his condominium at Trump Towers, parking their money and buying condominiums and then reselling it and laundering money through Trump. So, but I guess Trump appealed it, and he got a Republican judge, a Trump sycophant judge, to dismiss the charges and let him get off scot-free without paying a penny in penalties. But he wanted to turn it around and say Letitia James committed insurance fraud, real estate fraud, mortgage fraud, he called it, mortgage fraud. That's to be exact, mortgage fraud. That Trump insisted, and Trump's lawyer, a registered Republican that Trump personally appointed under Pam Bundy, to insist that he prosecute not only Letitia James, but Comey and Schiff for real estate fraud. Just because he couldn't save face being embarrassed coming out of the court with Letitia James, he wanted to turn it around and force his lawyers to sue them to make it seem like I turned the tables on y'all. But in reality, his lawyer says there's no evidence to bring to court. And Trump got pissed off at his own attorney that he appointed under Pam Bundy. And so he ordered Pam Bundy to fire him and to re-argue the case again. He wants the Department of War, or this merger with TikTok is only for him to control the media, because he doesn't get along with 97% of the media. So there's like 3% left. So that must mean TikTok, which Murdoch owns, and Fox News, which Murdoch owns. The 3% of the media that he does get along with, when they're not trying to backstab each other, him and Murdoch. In order to steal the midterms with pro-Trump propaganda throughout the social medias, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Because, the CEO of YouTube was in his inauguration. They get invited all like disciples to go to the White House for dinner, to sit down with Amalia and talk about the social media. So Trump wants to vet out the media with the FCC. If they don't dare pander to his vanity, omnipotent psychopath disorder. So now, back when Trump was supporting Charlottesville Nazis and Ku Klux Klans in a racist college in Charlottesville University, marching around General Lee, Trump kept on bragging about that at every rally. General Lee knew how to fight wars. General Lee, he knew how he always take the high ground. And so Trump's animately at every rally saying, I would defend the Confederate named bases in behalf of Charlottesville. on behalf of the Ku Klux Klans and Nazis. I would defend Charlottesville. I would defend the Confederacy symbolisms within the Pentagon and Confederate monuments, the Confederate state flags. Now he creates this delusion of the war on DEI because it befuddles him. How can we have black senators, black Congress, black governors, black mayors, black professors at Ivy Leagues, black scientists, physicists, mathematicians? They're too dumb to merit it. They're too dumb. They just got a free handout because of affirmative action. It wasn't that long ago in the 1960s that the white people said the black man don't merit, black people don't merit drinking from the same water fountains. In other words, the white people didn't want to touch the lips of the water fountains if black people drank from the same fountains. They didn't want their kids dating black people, going to the same schools, going to the same colleges, going to the same restaurants, lunch counters, going to the same shopping stores. They believed that black people didn't merit voting, let alone be a citizen, let alone be freed from slavery. That was in the 1960s, not too long ago, where the black community has to fight for their freedoms, but the white man didn't want to merit their freedoms. The merit-based system. The affirmative action, white supremacy, affirmative action of bigotry in the 1960s. The white man didn't want to merit liberties and freedoms for the black peoples. So in Trump in 2015 rallies, he was insisting that his white supporters sock African American protesters that had signs that were anti-Trump at his rallies. Trump is like, punch them, I'll pay for your legal fees. He said in the good old days, they'd be taken out of here in stretchers. Now, sports players kneeling and praying to God for civil rights awareness. Like Martin Luther King kneeling in the middle of Burma in the sidewalks while they were tossing rocks at him and sicking dogs at him. While Martin Luther King kneeled and prayed for civil rights awareness. The same way the football players did the same during Trump's first term. Now Trump says, y'all unpatriotic son of a bitches. Y'all disrespecting the flag. Y'all don't love our country. But his supporters that ransacked the Capitol building almost hanged his vice president, which he said, I can see why they wanted to hang him. They almost blew up the first vice president African American woman to be president of America. They almost blew her up with 2 pipe bombs. They almost killed Nancy Pelosi when they ransacked the Capitol building. And Trump sang a pledge allegiance to them from inside of a prison. And he said these are true patriots. He said that his speech on January 6th was better than Martin Luther King and that he had bigger crowds than him. But now Trump wants TikTok. He wants the war on DEI. He wants to be able to steal the midterms of 2026. He wants to be able to showboat his fascism and try to arrest Obama. He knows that the blacks might riot, so he wants the military in Chicago. Because it's the war on DEI. He wants to take America back to the days where the white man has to give permission for black human beings to be considered equal. If they look at them as subspecies like animals, varmints, infestations, shithole peoples from shithole places, people that eat cats and dogs, they're emptying out their prisons, their insane asylums, their mental wards. They're sending us their worst. Now these is Trump's immigration policies, obsessing about debrowning the nations from the global South migrants of the United States. Because he likes to demonize 75% of the population on Earth. The way he talks with indignation of migrants from the global South. But you see about this TikTok, it's all a propaganda bullhorn. And like I said, Murdoch washes Trump's hands the same way Trump washes his hands. But sometimes they don't see eye to eye, probably because sometimes Murdoch gives bad approval rating polls in Fox News, and that offends Trump. Sometimes Trump says, oh, there's something funny going on at Fox. If they ever give him a approval rating poll that disagrees with him on Fox News, he would think that that's betrayal. Even though Murdoch makes his anchors pander to Trump 99% of the time. But maybe Murdoch has some more evidence on Epstein, maybe videotapes, maybe other files, maybe other documents that he blackmailed Trump, probably for TikTok. And Trump turned it over, and now supposedly they're friends again. And they always been insider trading through Fox News, him and Lucknick and Murdoch. And they all divvy up these cryptos and speculative stocks and become activists pirating on themselves through this wealth fund that's controlled by Harold Lucknick, Secretary of Commerce under Trump. And they enrich themselves. They all Robert Stevens. Sometimes they backstab themselves while they're arguing with themselves. But they're trying to grip up billions and billions for themselves, like Stevens. Looting the treasury of America as oligarchs and robber barons and demagogues.